Hi, I'm Karen Lance with Sacred Quilt, and today I'm going to show you a quick technique that I think could save you a lot of time, especially if you end up having to rip seams out if you make a mistake doing this. As you could see, I don't have a design wall, I have a design floor. And for me, this works because I live by myself most of the time, and I don't have a pet to run around and wreck it up, and I don't have kids around. So this works pretty well for me, and it lets me just see it as I walk through my living room. Anyway, the technique is to keep the columns in order as you're sewing, so you don't have one that's turned the wrong way, because it would be dreadful to get to the end of the quilt and realize that, especially in this quilt, that one of these is turned the wrong way. I'll fill you in. I made this quilt at a guild workshop that we did about a week ago. It's Charisma Horton's pattern. We bought the patterns and we had somebody in our guild actually teach the class, which was wonderful because she made it in advance, and so she knew some of the pitfalls, which really helped us so we didn't make any errors in it. So this is what I do. I sew it in columns, not in rows, for whatever reason. I have 1A and 1B, and that's going to be the first column, and I have 2A and 2B. You could see I sewed those four together already. I wanted some kind of show and tell for my guild meeting, but I didn't get the whole thing done. So I'm just going to stack them carefully in the correct order. And I swear this has saved me so much time not having to seam rip something out if it's not quite right. And what I like about this the best is that you always have your top and your bottom layered. So if you sew a few of these and then the stack turns, you can see that the stack turned because now your 2B is sideways, and you always want it to go the right way. So here are my two stacks that I'm going to sew together. I usually, when I sew A, 1A and 2A. I sew them in tandem, and I'm going to show you that next. Stay tuned. Okay, so here's how I begin. I have 1A on my left side, 2A on my right side because we read left to right, and I'll take my 1A pile, and I know that the next one goes like this. And I'm going to feel that this corner seam is flat when I sew it together. And sometimes you have to zhuzh it so it fits, but it's fabric, so it's very forgiving. So that's my first stack. Now I move on to my second stack. So 2A goes to the next one. Also, my seams are locked. And I chain through like this. Saves time. I'm also not a big pinner if I can avoid it. So I'm back to 1A. My corner looks very nice there because I matched them up so they were locked together. I can cut my tail off. They had the tail in there just to start it so the needle, the thread wouldn't knot up. And now I'm ready to add my next block, if you could see that. And I know that I'm going in the right order, and here's how, because my 1B is on the bottom. And I like this in case I have to get up in the middle for some reason, if the phone rings, if I have to go stir soup or something. I know I'm going to come back and be right on track again with it. 2A, I'll check my pile just to make sure. 2B, facing this way. I didn't turn the pile. Black is on the bottom. Yep. And I'm back to 1A again. It's worth noting I do have corners where the seams go in the same direction, so I can't lock them in, which really bothers me. This is locking them in where you have this seam going this way and the other seam going the opposite direction. These go the same way because they're pressed to the dark. And so I take a pin, and those are corners that I will pin so that it turns out well. And I try and pin it like right on the seam on both sides so it sews through. I try never to sew over the pin. You can get into trouble doing that or break your needle. Then you have to stop and find another needle. So this is the time when I actually pin. I come close to the pin, but I don't sew over it. And if you do sew over it and you break the needle, you'll know right away. You will hear it. 2A. The next one. Locking the seams again. You will feel when the seams are locked because it feels very flat. You don't feel a valley in between. Yep. My pinned seams, that one's really clean. I'm very happy with that. And that one looks good too. So the pinning works even though I don't like to do it. And now I'm back to 1A. Back again, it's worth noting, somehow, some way, my stack turned. And so I went to sew them this way, but I knew something was wrong because blacks are going on the bottom. So I checked the bottom. This is my one column. I checked the bottom, and sure enough, it had turned this way. So that's why this is so great, having this on the bottom. And here's the next one. Hey, I almost forgot. The next trick I do is I have to remember my odd rows I press down and back, and my even rows I press up and back. So when they get sewn together, and I can show you the back on this one, it butts together a little bit nicer. I know some of my guild members were pressing the seams open. I didn't opt to do that. I did it differently. So we'll see if I'm happy with the results. If I had pressed them open, it might be flatter, but I've always pressed them in a direction. I was told it was stronger that way. And then also, when I'm finally done with the quilt, I will probably press all the vertical seams that way, because it looks like that's what I already started to do. So just another tip to make your sewing easier. So here we go. The center is all together, and I might leave it on the floor for a couple days more, just so I can think about what kind of border I might like to put on it. It's a pretty busy quilt, so I don't want to overwhelm it with anything, but I have a few ideas in mind, and I will keep you up to date. If you have a different way of sewing your parts together in pieces and blocks, I would love to hear about it. If you have something that's more efficient, write in, let me know. I'm always open to trying new things. Most of my quilts are somewhat experimental. If you like the channel, hit the subscribe button, like it, and definitely tell your friends about it. And the new book, almost out. Pick up a copy of The UFO Cure. Thanks. Bye.